Welcome back to Dark Dreams. If you want more stories like these, please subscribe and comment which stories you want us to continue. Now, close your eyes and enjoy these dark dreams. David had always been an ambitious man, with a sharp mind and a talent for business. And for years, his business had flourished, thanks in no small part to his brilliant partner, Richard. However, after several years running the company together, David began to notice that Richard's behavior was becoming more erratic. He would often lash out at employees, become obsessive about small details, and make irrational decisions that cost the company money. At first, David tried to ignore it, thinking that Richard was just stressed or going through a rough patch. But as the incidents piled up, David began to suspect that there was something seriously wrong with his partner. David's suspicions were confirmed when he received a disturbing email from Richard late one night. The email was rambling and incoherent, full of conspiracy theories and wild accusations against the company's employees. As David dug deeper, he discovered that Richard had a long history of erratic behavior, including several incidents of violence and aggression towards co-workers and business associates. David decided to confront Richard, but he knew that he was in over his head. The two of them sat down in Richard's office, and David began. "Richard, I've been worried about you lately. What's going on?" Richard shifted in his seat, looking uncomfortable. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just under a lot of stress lately." David didn't buy Richard's excuse. "I understand that the company is under a lot of pressure, but that's no excuse for your behavior. You've been acting like a different person lately. What's really going on?" Richard sighed and leaned back in his chair. "Okay, fine. You want to know the truth? I'm tired of always being in your shadow. You're always the one who gets all the credit and the recognition. I'm sick of it." David was taken aback. "What are you talking about? You've always been an important part of this company. You know that." Richard shook his head. "No, you don't get it. I want more than that. I want to be the one making the decisions, not just following your lead all the time." David was stunned by Richard's words. He had no idea that Richard harbored such resentment towards him. "Richard, I had no idea you felt that way. But you have to understand that we're a team." Richard looked at David with cold eyes. "I don't want to be part of your team anymore. I want to be in charge. And if that means I have to do some things that aren't exactly above board, then so be it." David was horrified by Richard's admission. "What are you saying? You can't just go around breaking the law to get what you want." Richard stood up, looking angry. "I'll do whatever it takes." With that, Richard stormed out of the office, leaving David alone to ponder what he had just heard. The conversation had left David shaken, and he knew that he had to keep a close eye on Richard from now on. Desperate for help, David turned to a close friend, a psychiatrist, who had experience working with people like Richard. Together, they came up with a plan to get Richard the help he needed, while also protecting the company from any further damage. They arranged for Richard to be admitted to a psychiatric facility, where he could receive the care and treatment he needed. David knew that he had to keep a close eye on Richard, as he was afraid that he might hurt himself or others. But David's worst fears were realized when he received a call from the facility, informing him that Richard had somehow managed to escape. David immediately went into action, calling the police and putting out an alert to the company's employees. As the search for Richard continued, David couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. He knew that Richard was capable of doing something manipulative and evil, and he was afraid that he might hurt someone in his state of psychosis. His fears were confirmed when he received a call from the police, informing him that Richard had been caught in the act of embezzling money from the company's accounts. David was shocked and angry. He had trusted Richard with everything, and now he had betrayed him in the worst possible way. But it wasn't until David started looking deeper into the company's finances that he realized just how deep Richard's deception went. He had been siphoning off money for years, using fake accounts and shell companies to cover his tracks. David was sickened by Richard's arrogance and manipulation. With the help of the police and his legal team, he began the process of prosecuting Richard for his crimes, hoping that justice would finally be served. He had trusted Richard with everything, and now he was paying the price for his partner's psychotic behavior. David was on edge, knowing that the outcome of the trial could make or break him. But just as the verdict was about to be read, something unexpected happened. New evidence emerged, a series of emails and documents that showed that David had been the one behind the embezzlement scheme all along. David could feel the ground slipping out from under him. As he listened to the evidence against him, he realized with horror that he had been the psychotic one all along. He had created the persona of Richard as a way to cover up his own actions and manipulate those around him. He had destroyed his reputation, his company, and his life, all because of his own greed and psychosis. But just as David was being led out of the courtroom, he caught a glimpse of a man in the crowd. It was Richard, or at least, that's what David thought at first. But as he looked closer, he realized with a sickening feeling that the man in the crowd was not Richard at all. It was someone else, someone who looked eerily like him. He had created a false persona in order to cover up his own actions, but now that persona had taken on a life of its own. As he was led away, David knew that he had to find out the truth about who he really was. Thanks for listening. If you want to know what happens next, let us know in the comments below. And as always, we wish you dark dreams.